So in this segment, we're going to be talking about UK ministers blamed for blocking possible rail strike deal. So this is effectively accusing the government of blocking the companies and the main rail company from getting a deal with the striking workers in the union. So UK ministers blocked a possible deal to call off strikes this month by preventing the industry from offering unions higher pay deals and adding tough new conditions at the last minute. So it looks like the Tories are trying to drag this out. I think that the Tories want to keep these strikes going. It's a good distraction for them from the cost of living crisis. They have a villain in Mick Lynch and the union barons. They can try and blame them for the striking workers for all the nation's problems. The BBC are putting out dubious stories about people being impacted by the strikes and missing out on family time over the holidays. This is just another weapon in the never-ending right-wing culture war in this country. Employers have planned an offer of 10% pay rise over the next 2 years to the RMT union, but were blocked by the government, which controls the industry's finances. According to 3 people familiar with the matter, instead 14 train operating companies offered an 8% pay rise over 2 years, tied to a series of tough reforms in a deal which the RMT rejected within hours on Sunday evening. So what happened was they were offered, 4 and 4 effectively, 4% this year, 4% next year, which is well below inflation. And they were forced to accept a load of redundancies. It's interesting that the actual companies were offering 5% now and 5% next year, which is higher. And there's no mention of the redundancies in one of the offer in the original offer that the employers wanted to make to the unions. That's what the government means by modernisation. They mean redundancies, less staff on routes, and no more increased pay on certain days, amongst other things. So on the 12th of December 2022, Network Rail made an offer of a 5% pay rise this year and 4% pay rise in 2023. But RMT boss Mick Lynch described the deal as substandard, and its members have rejected it by 63.6% of the members who voted rejected the deal. So this is important because it's up to the striking workers whether they accept the deal or not, and the unions can advise on it. They can say if it's a good deal or a bad deal, but the workers have rejected it outright, which shows you that they're not. I think it's the redundancies rather than just the pay amounts that are the main problems. I'm not sure if this deal meant any forced redundancies, but it looks like this 9% figure might be the most the Tories are willing to offer for now, given that the companies wanted to offer slightly more. The majority of railway workers under this union are clearly wanting to carry on the strikes, but I think the forced redundancies were a part of this deal, based on what Lynch said. Transport Secretary Mark Harper this week did not deny that the government had asked for extra conditions to be put into the deal. So the government are very much pulling the strings here. It added, "We've been clear from the onset that reforms to work practices are a necessary part of the deal in order to fund the pay offer and modernise the railways." It looks like the Tories are fixed on the idea of forcing redundancies. The other issue is that the Tories, through their very late lockdowns, made it so there would be less people on the trains, given the increasing cost of train travel and the more hybrid work practices of people a few days, from home they work. It means that less and less people are taking the trains. Perhaps the government should focus more on incentivising people to use trains rather than making the service way worse through their dumb modernisation ideas. The government has long insisted that it sets the parameters for the industry's negotiators, but does not directly intervene in negotiations. They blocked the deal the railway companies wanted to make with the industry, which tells me that the Tories are well involved in this. With the rail industry's finances being badly hit by the pandemic, it's called on unions to accept the reforms and pay rise and to call off the strikes. The issue is, for the most part, I think it's the government that did the real damage to the train industry, and I would be interested to know how railway companies in other countries were actually doing. Growing public sector anger at below inflation pay offers has seen NHS staff, firefighters, teachers and Royal Mail staff planning or considering strike action over Christmas. Perhaps the reason the Tories are trying to reduce the pay increase to railway workers as much as possible is because they fear other public sector workers will go on strike. If the Tories don't give the railway workers a decent pay increase, then it may disincentivise other workers from going on strike, given how hard the unions and the railway workers have worked for the pay increase. That's the government saying, well, maybe they want more weapons in the culture war to keep blaming. They're going to blame the unions for the crisis. If there is a winter of discontent, they'll blame the unions for it, and they think maybe they'll get away with it. Just like I don't know if this is quite that similar to the winter of discontent. I'll be honest. I'd have to do more reading about it. But maybe they think they can kind of recreate that scene where the public hates on the unions, because it is kind of happening a bit. I think there are more people kind of hating on the unions, but I'd have to look at the polls, because I think the last few polls I saw, the vast majority of people supported the union strikes. I guess it just depends on if you use the trains or not, how often, and kind of, do you accept them going on strike because they deserve a fair wage, which 100% they do, or are you just one of those people who are angry that, oh, I just couldn't get to work today, or I couldn't live my life? Because, you know, some people are losing money on this as well, and it's just a sad situation. But, you know, maybe it really strengthens the case for unionising more, you know, for more workers to unionise, purely because it gives you a lot of strength. You know, there is a power in collective bargaining. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.